Sasha, we're now in Kenya, and I was hoping that you could give some travel tips or advice to people who are visiting this wonderful country.
Uh, Fair enough, Tanya, that's not a problem. I think first thing is to know that it is a wonderful country. Has a very big history of tourism. It has a big history of lots of foreigners being in Kenya. We have a very big UN site at the moment in Kenya, and there's still a lot of foreigners actually from back in the colonial day, and a lot of other visitors in terms of investment. So from that point of view, Kenya is really a country that has a lot of experience dealing with foreign people, and that I think is a really positive thing. There are some negatives in the country, certainly from a security point of view. A lot of it comes from probably a disparity in economic well-being of the people. You have very rich driving your latest vehicles. You have very poor having to walk 3 hours from home to work every day. So I suppose when you look at a balance on that, it is really pretty much like any other country in the world. It has its goods and its bad. If you are visiting, I think where you're going makes a very big difference. If you're going to come into the urban areas, you find a very specific kind of security situation. Here you'll find more crime, I suppose typical reminiscent of any large metropolitan city. Certainly in the big cities, Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Eldoret, you're going to find your pretty typical street crime and other related crimes. In your urban areas, much less. Certainly also around your major resorts, in terms of anywhere that you're going, maybe on safari, you'll find much less of your typical city crime. And you find actually very little. Certainly when you go on your safaris, all your national parks are very well secured. Entrance into them is very tight. You can't go in with any arms of any sort. So our Kenya Wildlife Service has that pretty well covered. In terms of borders, we are fortunate or unfortunate to border Somalia, and because of that, because of the relative porosity of the borders, we've had a lot of incidences up there, especially in relation to Al-Shabaab. However, Africa being so big, and Kenya being so big, you really hardly ever feel that outside those special border areas. In terms of the typical crimes you might actually be facing, very popular, your typical street crimes, I guess, snatching, mugging, especially in the evenings. Kenyans are very brave when it comes to that, certainly the criminals. On the rise, you find that kidnapping has actually been going up as well. It seems the Kenyan criminal has really been following very much the security trends or the criminal trends that are actually going on. Unfortunately, I'm not sure I can say the same about the security forces. They're probably a bit less in tune with what's going on. Again, that comes down to the resources that they're given.
Are normal, regular business travelers or tourists coming to Kenya vulnerable to kidnappings?
I think a lot of them will be. Again, really depending on their itineraries and what kind of locations they want to visit. You have a lot of donors coming in from abroad who actually want to go and see the more impoverished parts of, especially Nairobi, but other parts of the country as well. And in such circumstances, yeah, when you have a group of asset bearing, if you can look at it from that point of view, individuals or groups coming in into an area that's really badly impoverished, yeah, news travels fast, and you could find a situation. In general, no. In general, no. I think largely the situation has been exaggerated abroad. But yes, if you are going into very specific areas, then you probably need quite a good security detail with you. Beyond that, really, in terms of the kind of security tips I might give, it's your general travel tips. Be careful, be secure, be sure, be safe, be aware of what's going on around you. Find out what's going on beforehand. It's always very useful to actually have somebody ahead of you, so to speak. If you are going to visit somebody that you know, find out what's going on with the country at that particular time. If you are going to a hotel or to a resort, you can Google it up as well. So I wouldn't give anything specific. Really, it's your typical country with your typical criminal issues.
All right, thank you very much, Sasha.